On episode 312 of the podcast, we talk about how to close the biggest job of your video production career. We also talk about how to overcome whatever is holding you back in your business. And then you'll learn a technique that will give you more confidence than ever before. What's up, friend? I am Ryan Coral from Studio Sherpas, and this is the Grow Your Video Business podcast. This is the show for corporate and commercial filmmakers where we talk about the business of video production. We talk about sales, marketing, mindset, this episode, in the process of building a sustainable business. I'm so glad that you're here. I've been running a video production business for the last 18 years, and I'm so excited to be able to share some of what I have learned and also introduce you to some incredible friends who I have had the pleasure of learning so much from. I was gonna say fun, but that would make zero sense. Hey, we're almost at the end of the year. I think there's one more episode after this, and then it will be 2023, which is crazy. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what you are planning on for 2023. What are your big dreams, big goals? Make sure to reach out to me and let me know. I'll give you all of that information where you can do that at the end of this episode if you don't have it already. But if you have not accessed my 6-figure filmmaker workshop, where I share 3 things that can help you, that you can apply in your video business right after watching this completely free workshop, things that I have done in my video business to build a 7-figure video production company where we've got a studio, I've got employees, I've had employees for well over a decade. I'm super old and very seasoned, just incredibly wise. I'm sort of kidding, but not really. I've really laid it out there in this workshop. It's going to be available for a little bit longer. You can get access to it if you haven't already by going to studiosherpas.com/workshop. studiosherpas.com/workshop. It's there. It's free. It's jam-packed with lots of nuggets. Hope you're able to watch that and get some very actionable things that you can do in your video business today. With that, let's jump into this episode with Mr. Matt Clark. What's up, friends? Hey, welcome to today's episode. I have a special guest with me. His name is Matt Clark. He is a speaker and expert team strategist. His focus on the neuroscience of belief formation and core belief transformation, coupled with his experience as none other than a NASCAR championship pit crew coach for drivers like Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, give him a unique perspective on mindset and performance. Matt understands the challenges of imposter syndrome, which we've talked about like 8 bazillion times on this show, developing leaders, building teams, and achieving results in an extremely competitive environment. His passion is to help high performers build the championship mindset, as well as helping business leaders develop teams that drive performance. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Matt Clark.
You almost made it. Thank you, Ryan. You read that almost like I wrote it. Well done, my friend.
Straight from the heart, man.
Listen, so yeah, right? So when I hear those words, first of all, let me introduce myself. Hey, I'm Matt, and I'm a recovering imposter.
Ooh, there we go.
Right? But when I hear those words and you read some of those accolades, I am still so humbled to have achieved some level of success in that NASCAR community and in life and business. But man, what I consider success nowadays is building strong relationships and empowering people to unlock the potential, right? Ryan, for me, living life and not reaching my potential is my greatest fear. So I am stoked to hang out with you today. I know we connected through our mastermind, and I am thrilled to be hanging out with you, man, and have some fun. So what do we got, brother?
What do we got? Wait, I'm asking the questions. Darn it.
Right?
Just teasing. Hey, quick side story. When I was in the 5th grade, I thought I was pretty funny back in elementary school. Kind of like there's like a theme throughout my whole life, thinking I was funny. Right. And so what I did, I think it was in the spring, and I went around. Everybody still kind of had their winter coats, and I thought it would be funny. I borrowed somebody's coat. I put it on top of the coat that I was wearing, so I had 2 coats on. And then I was like, "Oh, hey, let me borrow your coat." So eventually, I ended up with like, I don't know, 8 coats. And if you've ever seen A Christmas Story, right? Ralphie. Who's the little brother? What's his name? Yeah,
I don't know.
That kid, the little brother. He's that like, kid. You know, when his mom puts all the snow stuff on him, arms out like this, and I'm standing there. This is funny. Well, Nate Waldo bumps me from behind. I think on accident, maybe not. Bumps me from behind. I start falling forward. We're on the blacktop at recess. My face smacks the blacktop. Some kids, like, you know, everybody's like hovering over me. They're like, "Oh my gosh." They roll me over. I'm like bleeding, you know, like my face is cut up, my lips bleeding. And like I bit my lip in a couple of different places. A newer student who I really liked, I thought was a friend, sits on my belly and starts like he takes his fingers and he starts taking the blood that's coming out, and he starts like wiping my blood on my cheeks, right? And I'm laughing.
Braveheart style?
Oh yeah. So I'm sort of like not really in pain. I think like the whole thing just like happened so fast. And so Matt, well, I just almost ruined the story. His name, Matt Clark, right? So when I first saw your name, I was like, "No, don't tell me this is like the same Matt Clark." We were friends. It was it was just the whole thing. So anyway, I digress. We have big
digression.
bigger fish to fry on the show today. I loved your story when we were in Nashville together. I think listening to you and your vulnerability, I think was so rich. It was so good, and I'm grateful that I know to be vulnerable and to really share your heart like you did isn't always really easy. But I know it was very moving for all of us that were there. And I love that you talked about imposter syndrome, because, you know, as you shared in Nashville, I was like, that's my story. And that's like so many of our stories, especially I think we have a unique perspective as filmmakers and as creatives. Like that's our angle. Where we see so much incredible work out there, and we see so many successful studios. To think that, you know, we could ever achieve the greatness or come close to anybody else, it's just like there's no way. So to hear how you share, I was like, oh yeah, like I got to have Matt on and share at least a little bit of that story. So would you share some of that journey with us today?
Yeah, happily, Ryan. Thank you so much. Sometimes you don't know the impact that you have, right? You just do life, you do your presentation, you leave. I did get good feedback. And for context, Ryan and I are in a mastermind, a larger mastermind together, but our groups are different. So we had a meeting. So I shared this story to what I consider a safe audience, right, Ryan? Yeah, this is a story in which it was about 40 to 60 of us, but we're all colleagues, we're all friends, we're all connected through Mike Kim, who's our mentor and leader of the mastermind. Yeah. But it's a story that I think we have all faced, will face, and will continue to battle, and that is that I am not enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not bright enough. I'm not handsome enough. I don't have enough jackets on, right? Those stories, right? We battle them. And I finally got clarity, and I'll give a little bit of backstory here. I got clarity on some things that were holding me back. Now, let me set this up here. I feel like, and I say this humbly and respectfully, I had what many consider in NASCAR a storied career. Working for Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, Rick Hendrick, probably one of the best team owners in the history of NASCAR, two of the best drivers in the history of NASCAR, multiple championships, multiple wins, high pressure, traveled every weekend for 36 weekends for 15 years, like met celebrities, went all over the nation. Like it was crazy, right? All the while, I felt like a huge imposter. And you're like, Matt, come on. Yeah, so here's the setup to this is you can be successful and still experience imposter syndrome. And it wasn't until this summer, 2023. Now, I knew I had always had some self-limiting beliefs, right? And I think if we're truly honest, we journal, we kind of monitor what's happening in our head. We can catch ourselves saying, wow, okay, yeah, I am comparing myself. I'm feeling like I'm not enough. But I did some work with one of our mutual colleagues, Eugene Choi. And prior to that, I had been really diving into the neuroscience of performance, working with high performers for a lot of years, those pit crew guys that are living and dying by tenths and hundredths of a second. These guys are high performers. And I wanted to continue that. And I love to learn. And I started diving into neuroscience. But then as I began to unpack my own life, my own coach said to me, this was earlier into 21 and into 2022, we had our weekly meeting, and I was laying out some things for 2022, and she's like, I'm not sensing you're buying in. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you've got some self-limiting beliefs. And the long story short here is, she's like, do you have something heavy in your garage? I'm like, yeah, I got a kettlebell. I got a little workout studio at the house. She's like, I want you to carry that kettlebell around all weekend. And we coach very similarly. I'm like, got it, coach. It was New Year's Eve weekend. I carried that daggone kettlebell to my friend's house, inside my friend's house. But I still, even after dragging that, she's like, that represents your weight, like the extra weight you're carrying. I couldn't get a grip on it. But then when I started to dive into the neuroscience, the science behind our beliefs, how we form them, and then I did the work to figure out what was holding me back, I was like, now I can wrap my mind around that. So we'll start this conversation with, like, all of us are not immune from this thing called imposter syndrome or not feeling enough. So you are normal. And I think when we look at people's highlight reels, like in your lane, videographers, oh my God, great content, great equipment, great this, great that, accolades, I'm working with this person. Every pro game has that. It could be speakers. It could be like, think of, like, I'm the number one crochet person in the world, right? But I'm comparing myself to Sally Smith, who's an unbelievable crocheter, right? It doesn't matter. We compare ourselves. Yeah. So yeah, I am here. Like, I feel like my new ignited purpose is to help people unlock those self-limiting beliefs. And I'm willing to, I'll go as deep as you want to go in this rabbit hole, because here, let me just say this. As I was sitting after I gave this talk to that safe audience of, like, being totally transparent, like, I was a 20-year imposter for 20 years. I sat there and realized, you know what? If I say this is my calling, I have to share this story outside of these safe walls. So, like, people who know me, and I did Fox TV, Sports Live, like, in front of millions, like, people are going to know, like, wait a second, like, you felt like a phony that whole time? Yes, I did. And you know what? I'm okay with it, because I want to be transparent to help other people be transparent.
Yeah, that's a great gift. A gift to others, right?
Yeah.
Take me, I mean, do you remember you got emotional during your talk?
Ryan, I still get emotional. I know exactly where you're going, but you can set me up if you want, but I already know where you're going with this question. Like, what was the story? What was the turning point? Yeah. What was the thing that brought me to that clarity?
Yes.
Well, may I ask myself the question? Yeah. Okay, great. By the way, gang, just my background is I interviewed people for a living. So, like, this is part of my
I'm just going to step away. I'll be back in a few minutes.
Let me interview myself. Yeah. No way, man. I love the company, man. And I love your heart. So, Ryan, here's the thing, right? I just did this presentation to a small group that's been a longtime client. We were doing their year-end retreat, and I wanted to lead with mindset and belief formation. And the story I'm about to share is, I still got emotional yesterday telling this story. That's how powerful it was. Yeah. So our good friend Eugene Choi, who I love, who is an unbelievable Destiny Hacks, look him up. Like, he is a rock star.
He's been on the show a few episodes ago.
Been on the show. You guys know him. I love him.
Yeah,
like,
he's amazing.
He is like the genuine article.
Yeah.
So he was doing a workshop, a 2-day workshop, and he offered it to the folks in our mastermind. I'm like, I'm in. So we kind of did some of the neuroscience, and I won't go into his content, but then part of it on day 2 was, hey, what is some of the trauma, or what are some of the things that may be holding you back? And he set us up nice. He kind of took us into this space quietly, and we had some music because it was meditative, and there was only 5 of us on the call, so it was intimate, and we all basically knew each other. So it was a safe space. And what happened was epiphanous to me, if that's a word. I remembered an incident when I was in high school. I loved baseball. I wanted to be a New York Yankee. I wanted to play Division I baseball. Like baseball was my game. It was my life. I had a coach pinch hit for me in the state playoff games as a sophomore. Now, I had been starting since a sophomore, since a freshman at the varsity level, but we had an all-state first baseman that was hurt. He was an all-stater going D1 college, but he couldn't play. He had, I think, a strain, broken, something wrong with his wrist, but unbelievable athlete. But he wasn't playing. I was able to start. I earned my position defensively, and state playoffs, key moment, coach pinch hit for me. I didn't think a whole lot of it at that point, but it started something in me that was like, and I didn't realize it. And that just kind of went to bed, and I finished out my high school career, and I struggled a little bit offensively, great defensive player, etc. And then I began to stack like, hey, I ended up getting my college degree and went back as an older student from a no-name college without walls, right? So I minimized that. I worked at a small Division III college as a sports information director and athletic director. And if you know Division III athletics, particularly Catholic college, like there's no money, no fame, no anything, right? I played community college baseball as an older student when I went back to college. So I'm stacking all these like meh, like, and we can type MEH, in the notes, like, yeah, kind of like this, whatever, like not very significant experience, right? Then I end up working at the highest level of racing. And I'm an imposter. But what set this up, that whole story that I told is Eugene took us back. And that 14-year-old, 15-year-old high school first baseman, I saw myself. And if you're familiar with the movie Field of Dreams, like that's my all-time fave, I went back to myself, and we were standing in the edge of the outfield in Field of Dreams, and I had a conversation with my younger self. And I said, Matt, you're more than that. You're more than enough. This doesn't define you. If you were the coach, you would have made the same decision. You have an all-state, well-proven hitter on the bench. You're a sophomore in a very key situation. It was the right move, and you would have made it too. But what happened, Ryan, that began to let me stack a series of beliefs that I just mentioned previously, that I wasn't enough, small school, little experience, not worthy, and I was living that out. All of a sudden, I'm working 20 years ago. That's when I started in NASCAR. I ended up at the biggest name in NASCAR, and I was afraid that I would be discovered. And that conversation with myself was a game changer. And when I came back from kind of that deep meditative state, like I was wrecked. I was in tears because I finally had that conversation and said, you've been holding on to this untruth, this belief that you weren't enough. And what set that up, Ryan, is and this is why I'm so passionate about beliefs and belief formation and belief transformation, is I began to live out this idea that I'm just a role player. I'm the extra man. I'm the sixth man on the basketball team. I'm not the guy to take the shot. I'm the supporting cast. And then every job, I was always making sure like everybody's taken care of. And that's my nature in some respects, that I'm the helper. Like I'm the guy you can lean on, but I'm not necessarily the guy. And as I began to put this together over this summer, I was wrecked, but yet freed. And here's a quick story. Let me share another story that's kind of tied into this, right? Yep. That I think folks might appreciate. And this just dawned on me over the last month or so. We won the Daytona 500. and even for folks who don't know anything about NASCAR, people have heard Daytona 500. Like, it's an iconic race. Jeff Gordon or Jimmy Johnson, I cannot recall at the time which one, won that race. Rick Hendrick, big car dealer, big car owner, billionaire, was like, hey, listen, you guys can come and hang out on our yacht tonight after the race, because it was docked right there on the water at Daytona. Right? Story, like crazy, like this 100, I don't know, it's humongous, right? You know what I chose to do, Ryan? Go home. I went home because you had the option. You could stay or you could go home. I went home because I didn't feel like I deserved to be there. Oh. I went home because I was like, well, the other team that I coach didn't win. I don't know if I feel like I'm a truly integral part of this. And I'm the coach. I'm the guy helping call the X's and O's with these guys that go over the wall, change the tires, fuel the car. And I'm sad for myself now as I go back and look at that story. And I look back now through that lens and say, there are so many other things that I missed out on. Yeah. Because my belief system, my lenses, and if you're not on video, like I'm taking off my glasses, like you're seeing life through your belief system, which is the lenses in which you see life. Yeah. And they needed to be changed for me. And that's what has happened. And that's why I'm so passionate, because I was living out this, I'm not enough. I'm going to work hard to be good and to be supportive and to be that person. So that's what's changed to me. And I am so passionate about helping people understand how to get unlocked.
Man, that's really powerful. I can relate to that. That's it's sad to hear you describe, how you viewed yourself. And I know we've all been in that spot where we didn't see ourselves the way that other people see us, or even the way that we see us, like it's not even true, right?
So So you'll appreciate this, because this gives us really context to our mastermind in Tennessee. As I was prepping for this talk in Tennessee, like any good speaker, I was rehearsing it. And initially I thought I was going to have to present without any notes. So I was like going without, presenting, working on it. And I shared this story with my wife. I said, Karen, I need you to critique this, listen to it. There's some science there. Is it too geeky? Do you understand it? When I finished that first part of being an imposter for 20 years, she was in tears and said, I never knew. Yeah. And she's like, Matt, she was aghast. Like her mouth was just like hanging open. She's like, Matt, I don't understand. Like you were at the pinnacle. Like you did Fox Sports Live TV. You won races. You won championships. Like you were all over the nation. Like I said, Karen, I felt like an imposter. And I think all of us, if we're true, not all of us, I won't be a blanket statement, but some of us can relate and say, you know what? I've been hiding. Yeah. I'm that secret. I'm that closet imposter. And we may be very successful. And I think that's great. And I want to acknowledge that we can be uber successful and still feel like an imposter. Like imposter syndrome, like it doesn't escape anybody.
Right.
But I think recognizing what's happening, recognizing our belief system, what we truly hold to be true, is now the most important thing to me. And that's what I'm working to change. That's why I said earlier, like, hey, I'm Matt Clark and I'm a recovering imposter. That hit me one day because it's a battle. It's a daily battle. And I make the choice whether to take the thoughts, the potential beliefs that I can have rooted, physiologically at the neurological level, and let them take root, or say, you know what, it's an untruth. That is not me. So I am, that is my new calling. That is my pivot. That is where I want to be. And I just want to encourage folks, and we'll talk about like maybe some a little of the framework, Ryan, but I just want to encourage folks to let's be transparent. And if you have those, like acknowledge them and be like, you know what? Yeah, that might be me. And then work through like, hey, how do we get through that to be the best version of ourselves.
Yeah, so good. I think was it during your talk? I have the phrase "we become our beliefs." Did you mention that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I literally just earlier had another interview, and we talked about beliefs, and it. I'm so glad that we're talking about this again, because I think it's just like a quote unquote coincidence that this is sort of the theme. So good for me, but I also know there are some people this is really going to resonate with. What is the framework that you mentioned?
Right. So your folks get an inside look. This is, I charge tens of millions of dollars for this content we're getting ready to talk about. No. But that is part of my, coaching framework and how we monetize it and how we make it work and bring it to the world. But I'll talk about a few key points here. And it starts with clarity. You have to get clarity on the thing that's holding you back. Right? And that clarity helps us understand. And we didn't really talk about how beliefs are formed. But in a nutshell, what helped me get unlocked was understanding the science behind that, and that it happens at the physiological cellular level, right? Like we get to write, quote unquote, to ourselves. Yeah. But what helped me is I got clarity, like that stacking of beliefs that was really started with like that pinch hit. And maybe it was something before that, but that is the one thing, the big thing that I could latch my mind onto that started this belief. Because here's the thing, and I'll intertwine like how we form beliefs here, intertwine it. Is we have an interpretation, we have an event, right? We process an event. The brain is looking for events. Then we have an interpretation. That interpretation causes a physiological response, right? Boom. There's over 200 peptides in our bodies, which I call the juice, that is sent out based on how we interpret the event, right? If we see a bear running after us, right, fight or flight, boom, epinephrine, dopamine, like all these things are just cranking through our bodies, and right, depending on our interpretation of the event, love, bliss, all of those things. If it's strong enough, that interpretation, that short-term memory is moved to long-term memory, and then it's stored, right? It's stored there. And then the brain is looking for like, hey, this is my database of events. So once we have that stored and we're looking, because the brain is like looking for patterns, the brain is lazy. Now we're looking for confirming events. Then we begin to confirm events. And then the cells are like, hey, we crave this juice. Like, this is us. That's why, Ryan, have you ever noticed people like that are super angry? Or people that just like can only live on chaos? Like, their cells are wired to be that way. They only understand how to live that way because they become conditioned that way. So understanding that science, like, wait, this is just happening at a cellular level, right? And this is through some research, and I was reading and studying stuff that was like so over my head and my eyes were bleeding, but it's still like, it helped me understand, like, it's science. Like, beliefs aren't some abstract, like, unicorn rainbow thing. Because for the longest time, I couldn't nail down beliefs. Like, yeah, change your beliefs. Okay. I believe. Like, what? Well, now I knew how they were happening. So we get clarity on that situation. And we're like, okay, I've got clarity. And then I need clarity on what the truth represents, right? What is the truth that I want to see? What is the belief? What is the feeling? What is the goal, right? And this is the CHAMP framework. Then I have to honor myself, right? If I honor myself, the brain is like, oh, okay, you hold yourself in high esteem. If I fail to honor my journey, if I fail to honor myself, the brain's like, yeah, you're right. You don't value. Because we got to understand, our mind is separate from our brain. Our brain is matter. Our mind is separate from that, and our mind controls our brain. So we have to honor ourselves. And by honoring it, the brain's like, okay, yeah, I get that. And then we talk about, hey, the A is we have to affirm ourselves. And listen, I've done affirmations Hey, I'm this. And like one of my affirmations is I'm a champion, right? Like I have taken on that moniker. And to my earlier story, for the longest time, I didn't acknowledge or want NASCAR to be part of my story. I felt it was hokey. I felt it was corny. I felt it was a bunch of guys turning left. It was redneck. It was all the things that some people say it is, right? But when I tell people what I did in my story, like, oh my God, that's the coolest thing ever. It's kind of rare. So I had to honor my story because when you honor your story, your brain's like, yes. Then affirmations, right? We have to affirm ourselves. And when we affirm ourselves, what it does is it just creates that image in our brain. And we sense the world through the five senses. And our brains, our bodies, really have two types of transmissions, right? One is a conscious one. You and I goofing around, shifting gears, like that's our consciousness, creativity. Like your folks that are shooting video, like that's happening at the conscious level. Yeah. But then there's a system running what? At the automatic transmission level, which is the subconscious. Gears are still shifting, but you're totally unaware, right? And that's where our beliefs hang out, in that subconscious. And we're living them out. So we have to touch that subconscious, and we touch it through the way we see the universe, which is our eyes, our ears, and really how we feel. Kinesthetic, our feelings. So when we have affirmations, we have to be very clear because the brain needs to have clarity, right? If I ask you, Ryan, what is happiness? Or one of your affirmations was, I want to be happy. Your brain's like, well, what the heck does that mean? Now, if you want to be happy is defined as, I want to spend time with my kids an hour a day. I want to see sunsets. I want to hear birds chirp. Well, okay, now we're defining happiness, right? So the brain needs very, very clear instructions and needs us to be very, very succinct about, hey, what is it we want? So our affirmations need to be that. I am smart. I am intelligent. I am, right? So what happens is when we have affirmations, we want to say, hey, what am I going to see, or what are people going to see in me? Because our brain can see images and we create that image, right? What am I going to hear people say? Matt, great talk. Matt, this, Ryan, unbelievable. That vignette was unbelievable. The intro was, you killed the ending, like, right? All the things, the score was phenomenal, right? That's what our video folks want to hear. Like, you got the music right. Like everything was right. It came together. We told the story, right? That's what we want to hear. And then what do we want to feel? Like, what is that feeling we want? Confidence, love. We want to feel affirmed. We want to feel, calm if we're really struggling. So we touch that, right? So then that's the A. Then the M is we have to monitor the input. And that's what I'm really working on a daily basis, right? I feel like we're goalies sometimes, belief goalies, right? People always shooting pucks of negativity at us. So we have to block them. We have to monitor the input. We have to monitor our self-talk. What are you saying to yourself? And this is what I became good at. I'm not great at, but I'm daily working on it. What is my inner narrative? What are the word choices that I'm using? Well, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I'm smart enough. I don't know if I have enough money. I don't know if I have the best equipment. I don't know if, or I'm not enough, or I'm not this, I'm not that. If you hear those words coming out, red flag. What music are you monitoring? What music are you listening to? We have to monitor also the comparison. We talked about that earlier, right? There are so many great people. Like, I think of Eugene in our own circle. Like, I have to be careful not to compare myself to that rock star. I'm like, I love Eugene. I want to be Eugene. But I'm not Eugene. I'm Matt Clark. We tell different stories. We focus on different parts of the neuroscience. But what happens in the brain, if I compare myself to Eugene, what happens is that same juice flavor that's released when I'm having that belief comes into effect. So your brain's like, yeah, you know what? You're not enough. Let me reinforce that. Yeah. And you're like, yep, yeah, I'm not enough. So we have to monitor that input. And then finally, we have to practice forgiveness and gratitude. First of all, and I say this every time I have this talk, whether it's personally or in a group or on a podcast, but we have to forgive ourselves. And I say this with the most gentleness that I can. If you've experienced trauma and it's not your fault, you have to forgive yourself. Like, I hear so many stories of folks trying to internalize the divorce or the abuse, the sexual abuse, physical abuse that they endured as a child. That's not your fault. You have to forgive yourself. And maybe there's something that is your fault. Maybe you caused a bad accident. Maybe you caused a bad outcome. You still have to forgive yourself. You can't live with that unforgiveness, right? So we have to practice forgiveness, and we have to practice gratitude. And the science is there about forgiveness and gratitude. When we practice gratitude at a neurological level, the neural pathways, all of the science behind it, it remaps, rewires our brain. Like, that is like inarguable. I don't know. The science is on our side with that. The science is proven. So we have to practice gratitude. And that framework is just a framework that I had put together from the things that I learned, from my mentors, from the folks, from my reading. Like, that has worked for me to begin to build out, like, hey, how do I change these deep-seated beliefs? Because what I failed to mention maybe is that our consciousness is a pretty weak processor, but our subconscious is a very strong and powerful processor. And it's not just as simple as like looking in the mirror and say, hey, I'm handsome today. And we've seen all the memes, right? We've seen all the like, hey, let's make fun of the positive psychology thing. Like, I can do this, I can do that, right? We have to touch and reach deep down in the subconscious. And that, tying this all together, Ryan, when I went back and had that conversation with the high school baseball player, Matt Clark, that was deep subconscious work. And it was powerful. And that conversation was real, because here's the thing. Our brain doesn't know what's real and what's imagined. It doesn't. That's why we can experience phantom pain. That's why our dreams are crazy. Like, you wake up, your heart's racing, and it's like, wait a second, that was a dream. That wasn't real. But our brain doesn't know that. So when we tap that subconscious and go back, like I did, change starts to happen. So, I mean, that's my geek. That's my place where I'm living, studying, spending my time, and really encouraging people. My question to people, Ryan, is like, why? Why do you believe that? And it's a powerful question. And people are like, whoa. And I'm not even talking about religious beliefs or political beliefs, right? I'm talking about deep-seated core beliefs of, I'm not enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not handsome enough. I'm not whatever. Those are the things that I'm challenging. And I want people to be released from, hey, I'm not enough, to like, you know what? I am enough, and embracing their journeys.
I love that. Yeah, it's, I think it's, I'd be curious to hear from my audience to hear if the majority of people are like, yeah, this is like too woo woo, that, like, I mean, really the science, like, you can remap like the neuro things and it like does something that just seems like, I mean, it's like, it is just wild to think that it can be rewired.
Right.
And when you hear people's stories, people that face depression and people that like overcame like all of these things, then it's like, as you press into that, it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe there is something to that. Do you know Cliff Ravenscraft?
Yes.
Okay, so Cliff and I, he was on my podcast years ago. I spent time with him today for another episode. I mean, he helped me. He was coaching me, and he's like, anything else? Like, we were kind of winding down, and I was just like, I'm like, well, you know what? Like, this is kind of annoying. This kind of keeps happening. I'm trying to get up. Like, I want to get up at like 6 a.m. and, start working out, like, right when I get up in the morning. And he's like, oh, okay. He's like, well, are you going to bed like early enough to be able to get up at 6? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, okay, well, we'll try this. And And he like gives me this framework. He's like, basically just like, tell your, like right now, like say this out loud, like, I'm going to get up by 6 a.m. My feet are going to touch the ground at 6 a.m. in the morning. And so I'm doing this exercise and I'm like, this is so cheesy. Right. And he's like, and then do it again, like before you go to bed. He's like, do this for the next few days. Like you're essentially talking to your subconscious and telling, because your subconscious knows what's going on, right? But you don't know it. And I'm just like, dude, this is like, I'm like, I think you're smart and whatever. So I'm doing this, and lo and behold, and he also says, what's going to happen is your brain also knows, or your body knows what time it is. So I bet you're going to start getting up, and you're not even going to actually need an alarm clock at some point. Right. And 3 days later, it's like 5:59 in the morning, and I'm like, eyes open. I'm like, I'm awake, and I look over at my clock, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is so weird. So that was like my first experience of like, wow, the subconscious. It's like, hey, have you ever been driving and like, 10 minutes goes by and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting off at my exit. Like the last thing I remember was like leaving the office. How did I get right here? There's so much going on to think that we actually know all the things that are going on is hilarious and ridiculous. So I do love this and really appreciate this perspective, because I think there's really something here that we need to pay attention to.
So I'll add to your story. I traveled for the better part of 13 to 15 years every weekend for 36 weekends across the nation. Typically early Sunday morning flights, Texas, California, Florida, like all over, right? Because we traveled with the NASCAR circuit. I can tell you, I can't recall, but I'll caveat it. I don't ever recall being woken up by an alarm in 15 years. Now, because I knew I had to travel. My wife and I have started getting up at 5:15 now. We help our son get up, side story. But he started a job that he has to be in at 6 o'clock. So we're like, you know what? Well, we need to get up anyway. We like to start a day early. I'm up before the alarm all the time. Yeah. See, our brains are plastic, right? You're like, yeah, see, I knew you were fake. No, our brains are plastic, which means it's moldable. And the brain can change. Studies have shown, back to gratitude, folks with PTSD who are working on expressing gratitude is mitigating some of their PTSD. Mm-hmm.
It's good.
Without drugs, it's rewiring and remapping the brain. Listen, we're on the cusp of discovery, I believe, and I'm not even that smart in neuroscience, to see at a deeper level with technology of what is actually happening at the neurological cellular level. And I think people are going to be like, oh, crap, all along. The woo-woo people were onto a little bit of something. And this is straight science, because I am not a woo-woo person at all.
Yeah.
I am a straight like science. And that's why, for me, once I understood the science of beliefs were woo-woo before I understood the science. Like what, like I'm a person of faith, but like beliefs, like what is that? Like how change your belief. Okay, I believe different. Like what does that mean? Now I know, hey, it's happening on a physiological level. Yeah. So listen, man, Cliff's a legend. I am stoked about what's happening, and I can't wait to impact people and really help them get unlocked.
Oh man, so much. There's just so much in here. I love that framework. I think it's very approachable. I was even, as you were talking, monitoring the input. John Acuff has what is it? Soundtracks. One of my favorite books from last year. And Brene Brown, like the story you're telling yourself, right? Like these things that essentially, like, what is the voice like when you mess up? Like when I mess up, the voice that I hear is the voice that I heard when I was a little kid. And what I hear today is like me just telling myself, you're such an idiot. Like, why would you do that? Like, just like really negative and like really hard against myself, me talking to myself, and just knowing that can't be good for me. But what I was thinking as you were sharing, I was also thinking, I launched this Studio Sherpas brand a few years ago, and we had, I think, somewhat recently had gotten a our first six-figure contract for video production. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was hesitant to share this because I'm like, man, I don't want people to feel like, oh gosh, like, who does he think he is? Well, eventually I got the courage to start sharing that. And I know what has happened, right? Because I've talked to so many different corporate commercial filmmakers that will say stuff like, well, I know Ryan Coral. I'm not gonna book a six-figure job or even a five-figure job. Like some of these people would be happy booking a $5,000 job or like, getting close to $10,000. But like that, I think that's part of the input that we hear is like, I don't need to book a six-figure. I don't even need to book a, 20, but if I could book a 10,000, then I would arrive. I think part of that is if we can change what we're saying to ourselves, it would actually open up the possibility or the opportunity to book a $20,000 or a $50,000 or $100,000. I think that part of the way that we talk to ourselves is we're sort of closed off to an opportunity that might present ourselves, but because of the way that are just talking to ourselves and what we believe, it would never present itself. Is that too woo-woo, or is there something more scientific in that?
I would, let's take a second, because it does sound woo-woo, right? But here's what I discovered in my research. And okay, here we go. And I'll pull up the tennis ball, right? Because I had this, and this is my cell. If you're not familiar, I have a cell, and I have a tennis ball in my hand. The fuzzies on there, the nap are the receptors, and we talked about the peptides and the juice and how they connect, and they dump that flavor, and that's kind of what the cells start to crave, right? So that's the visual if you're just listening. But what I didn't talk about is that our cells vibrate. That's energy. Frequency and vibration. That is like scientifically proven. And I was always with you, like when people like, I sense this person energy. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's so like, no, new age. And I'm not into crystals and all that other stuff. But when I began to understand, like, our cells vibrate, and they vibrate depending on our situation and where we're at. That energy, I believe, is perceptible. And I believe it's perceptible by people, because let me ask you this. Why does a dog get the hair on the back of its neck standing up when someone walks up that everyone thinks is awesome, only to find out like 3 weeks or a month later, like this guy was an axe murderer? Like, I believe that there is this energy, this perception that we give off. And let's pivot back to that belief. Like, if you are thinking you're not worthy of a $10,000 job, you're never going to get it. If you don't think you're worthy and you make the presentation and pitch for a $150,000 job, good chance you're not going to get it, or you're going to look into it. But you need to understand that you deserve it and you're worthy of it. And we have this inner voice, inner narrative. When I talk mindset, I talk voices, choices, habits. What are the voices that are happening? And that voice that is shutting you down, like, I don't deserve this. And I'm with you, Ryan, when you said I didn't want to share because you felt like it would be what? Bragging.
Yeah.
And you cared about what people thought. You didn't want to celebrate your wins. And when we don't want to celebrate our wins with the people that are close to us, that means there's something wrong. That's a red flag. Right? Now, people need to see us win and lose, but when they see us win, when Ryan gets a six-figure contract, gang, listen, I don't know Ryan like we're best friends for the last 20 years, but a great dude, we run in the same circles. If Ryan can do it, you can do it. Matt Clark, if someone can get paid $25,000 to speak, I can get paid $25K to speak. Why should I settle for $5K? Right? So sometimes we predetermine what our worth is.
Yep.
And one of the things that I did, you probably guys did it in your last mastermind with Mike, is like, top 5 things that you learned about yourself this year, right? One of the things that I learned that I wrote down, like that I'm grateful for, or whatever that exercise was, is that I learned to value myself. And when you value yourself, you're willing to charge for yourself. And not every client is your ideal client. You need to connect with the energy that you have with the clients that you're going to serve well. And I think kind of putting a bow on all of this, it's not woo-woo. Like I used to think it was until I dove into the science. I honestly believe, like, okay, I will get woo-woo here. What if, right? Why? Let me ask you this, Ryan. Why is it that someone says, hey, I was thinking about you the other day, and it happened to be the perfect moment that you needed to think about you? Like, dude, I was down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what if, right? At this like super atomic, subatomic level, there's this energy communication thing that is like, boom, on that wavelength. You know what? Ryan needs to hear from me. Now, folks, of faith are like, and I'm one who's like, oh, that's the Holy Spirit. That's the Jesus thing. That's the Spirit thing. What if that's how this whole spiritual thing works? Because I serve a God of order. And it's not necessarily woo-woo. What if it's like we just don't see and understand that? So I know that got a little woo-woo, but putting this all together, gang, I just want to encourage you, like watch that cellular vibration, how your tennis ball vibrates, because people will perceive that you're unworthy. And I think I have put out like, hey, I'm a good sixth man. I'm a good support cast. And I am.
Yeah.
But I have the talents and abilities and skills to be that or to live out where I want to live. So that's my encouragement to your folks is like, listen, don't be bound and monitor what you're saying to yourself because you are your worst own enemy.
Yeah.
And do not allow someone else to speak death into your life.
Yeah.
Period.
Yep. Even if it is yourself. Stop allowing it.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
And that's where you kick it back and you say, that is an untruth. That is not true about myself. And that's where we click into like, you know what? I'm a champion.
Yeah.
I am valuable. I bring worth. And part of my exercise is like, we will write these things out and in the workshops, like that's what I want people to do to take the time to unpack this. We talked about it in 15 minutes, but this is a much longer, deeper, meditative process, but still there is a framework for people to work on.
Yeah, I love that. I think one of my challenges would be to say, hey, grab your spouse, grab your best friend, your mom, like people that are for you, that love you, that care for you, and ask them like, hey, what's true about me? Like, what are some things that you see in me that I might not see, or in trying to think, that I know nothing about myself. Tell me some things that are true about me. And, so if you're having a hard time trying to think through what are some affirmations, like some things like, I'm a champion. I've got this, I've got what it takes. If you have a hard time, like finding some of those, ask some of the people around you to encourage you and then write those down. Right. And then start, and don't just be like, yeah, whatever. It's my mom. Your mom's actually smart, right? She knows you,
Yeah.
Better than most anybody else does. She loves you probably, so she's going to say some things that, only moms would say, but still there is truth in what she's saying, and don't discount, your spouse. They're supposed to say this. Like, I feel like that would be a good practice, as someplace to start. If you've never, done any affirmations, it's like, well, what do other people think of me? And you might be surprised what people say in a good way, I think.
Ryan, so you're reading my mail here. So 100% over the years, I've asked my wife, what am I good at? What do you see in me? And I think you should do that with people you trust.
Yeah.
I did in our mastermind group, reverse hot seat, burning ears just this past week. And I've been wanting to do it for this past year, but the timing wasn't right, but this was the right time. And I had folks in my group say things and speak into my life that and these are people that I admire. They're rock stars, they're killing it. And I'll come back to that in a second. But they spoke into me and said things to me that I didn't realize I was a words person, like an affirmation person. But it gave me such confidence and it gave me such like a lift. And actually, I downloaded the recording so I could play the recording again.
It's good.
Of people saying things about me that I like I cherish.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you just said is a great cue to say, what do you see in me? What do I give off? Like, what are the values? Like, talk to me. What are some of the good qualities that you see in me? And start with that. That's good. That's good stuff.
And the thing is, like, you're stacking the deck, right? It's like, what are the good things, not the bad things, because we know that we've got plenty of bad things, but in the way that we're wired, that's what we're going to focus on. Like, how can I improve? Like, I know I suck at this thing and like whatever, but let's start with the things that people see in us that are good, so that we can be like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. And you start, chanting those and thinking those, like, man, you will remap your brain and do all sorts of like cool sciencey things that
right.
That I should write a book.
So, yeah, no, I love it. And listen, here's what I learned. This helped me get through this, even with people that are in my group or in this same area, and they do mindset and they do this neuroscience. Is everything anyone has learned, anything knows, they learned. Someone learned that. So the person writing the book. So it's okay to read and learn.
Yeah.
Like, we look at people like they're the expert. I can't say what they're saying, or I can't be in that field. They learned it too.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Very few people are the origin of this knowledge. Right? But let me get back real quick. I want to challenge you, because even your words, like, I suck at this. We have to start with reframing our own vocabulary. And when I hear my clients, like my coaching clients, like, I'm stupid. That was stupid. I'm not. I'm like, time out. Your words. Like, we don't talk to ourselves like that. Right? That's not honoring ourselves.
Right.
All that is reaffirming, like, I'm stupid. And listen, so I used to say I suck at marketing and I suck at math. What I'm saying now is, like, listen, I'm in this mastermind with a lot of marketers to learn to be a better marketer. And math just isn't my favorite thing. I didn't apply myself to it. So it's my word choice. So now it's like, okay, I can learn. And this is what I firmly believe. Now, at my age, at my skill level, am I going to go play for the New York Yankees? Nope. Not going to happen. Like, there are some things that are just not going to happen.
Right.
But can I get healthy? Can I work out? Yes. Can I learn math? Could I actually get a 6th grade algebra book, 8th grade algebra book, and go learn math? Yes. I just choose not to now. Right? So I am big on what's our inner vocabulary. And the stories we tell ourselves are the lives we live out. Yeah. And our beliefs drive our destiny. And that belief system is how we view the world. So if I'm not enough, I'm not smart enough, that's how we show up. Yeah. And I want people to get past that, to get through that, to show up, because we are all gifted in our own unique way.
Yeah, love it. Matt, so good. How can people follow along with your work and get more from you?
All right. So my website is mattclarkmc.com, and all my social handles are the same, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Insta, it's Matt Clark MC. I have been quiet on social as I'm going through kind of a rebrand, but that is picking up, and would love to hear from folks and just connect and really just start to share and build this community of, like, hey, how do we live in our best versions of ourselves with the right belief system?
I love it. Dude, this is so good. I love this conversation. Thank you. Thanks for bringing the heat. And really, really appreciate this today.
And thanks for having me, dude. And just as a side note, man, let's just get connected, and even not on the podcast. We just need to hang out a little bit more, bro.
Let's do it. All right, my friend, thank you for hanging out. If you want the links and access to the show notes, the quickest way to do that is just to go to studiosherpas.com/312. If you liked this episode, if you think it would be helpful for somebody else, do me a massive favor, please. Can you share this episode with someone? That would be cool. Easy way to do that is just take a screen grab on your mobile device, if that's what you're on right now, and forward that. Just hit the forward button, and it'll open into a little text message, and send it over to your friend. Share the love. I would greatly appreciate that. It helps with getting exposure for the show and the algorithm and other people finding this that might think it's helpful, that would mean a ton to me. Yes. If you're watching this, if you have a big takeaway from this episode, if there was an aha moment or anything like that, please let me know what that is. If you're watching this, you can leave a comment or feel free to send me an email. And my email address is ryan@studiosherpas.com. And like I said, on the front end of the show, let me know what is your big dream, your big goal for 2023. Not like, don't send me your list of here's all the things I want to do, but if there was one thing that at the end of next year that you could accomplish, you could achieve, let me know. I would love to hear it. You could also post inside of our community, and you can get more information on the community by going to studiosherpas.com/community. You get access there. Next week's episode is going to be my yearly reflection. It's one of my favorite episodes of the year to do, where I just kind of get to step back and share a lot of my gratitude and share some of the biggest moments, some of the biggest things that I've learned this year. So I will see you. I plan on seeing you next week. Hope you can join me. And until then, onward and upward. I hope you're able to find some rest during the holidays and spend time with your favorite people in the world. Sending lots of love, peace, joy, hope, goodness to you during this time. So that's it. I will go for now, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye. Or see you later.